Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Spincast. Today, we are diving back into high school esports. Joining us is Matt FLORI. He is a science teacher and esports coach at Castle View High School in Castle Rock, Colorado. So without further ado, Matt, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us where your passions personally started in esports and gaming and kind of how that was, took you down your own path to becoming the coach for esports at Castle View.
Yeah, sure. In high school, I was always in athletics, actually. So
Okay.
as I found out I was going to become a teacher, I thought I was actually going to coach normal athletics. And quickly, I started playing video games. I've always liked video games, and I found out very, very early that our state's going to be trying to compete at a competitive esports team. So I jumped on that right away. I decided that I wanted to do that. I wanted to lead that charge, and so I did. And now Colorado has its own esports season, playoff, and state championship. So I started playing games like League of Legends and Rocket League because those are ones that the state decided, and I helped decide that they're okay for students to play. I've been playing League of Legends for like 2 years now. At my old school at Gateway High School, we got second place at state playing League of Legends. And at my new school, no one plays League of Legends, but a lot of people play Rocket League. So we actually are starting our practices now and getting ready to hopefully make a run for state at a different school now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Rocket League and League of Legends are the two kind of mainstays at the high school level. We were talking about before we started recording. It's great for the parents. It's great for the viewers. It's great for the administrators. Everyone kind of, it's pretty easy to buy in without the negative stereotypes of the violence in the video games, which, look at the studies, it's quite the opposite, but that's a whole nother podcast series. Kind of diving into your program a little bit more. Take me through kind of what a day of practice looks like for the students. Because, a lot of the audience here are high school kids that want to get involved in their esports program or want to help kind of create their own, but they don't really understand what it looks like at the high school level because they haven't experienced it. So take me through what a day of practice looks like, what you focus on in trying to, just reach that next level and compete for the championships.
Yeah, so we actually just got done with our first practice. So first practice usually looks like getting to know each other, starting to get friendly with each other because we're talking about students here, right? And so that communication between students is so important for every single game, no matter what. So we were doing practice for Rocket League, for example. It's about an hour long from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock Mountain Time. So we did from 4 to 4:20, we did like 3 to 4 small 5-minute drills. Whether that be dribbling, whether that be passing, whether that be aerials, something. And usually I'll create a program that'll start off pretty basic and start to gradually increase so that kids that are at all levels can really focus on their mechanics. So that's about the first 20 minutes. After that, we break up into groups of 3. So the next 20 minutes is them playing games together that they're focusing specifically on mechanics, right? So they're focusing on the mechanics of the game of, hey, we're going to make sure that all passes are good passes, right? All shots are good shots, and there's like some oomph behind it. It's not just I'm trying to do something here. And really focusing on that and not really caring about if we're winning or losing, not caring if we're talking to each other or not. I just want to see good in action plays. And so that's kind of how I start to base it off of. And the last 20 minutes, we start working on communication because, stereotypical gamers, very quiet, very reserved. And so this kind of like gets them out of their shell a little bit and helps the team gel as well. So I'll actually just sit in Discord and I'll listen to who talks. And I'll put a tally for each time a kid talks, whether it's a good communication or a bad communication. And so like today, I think our highest on the first game was like 40. 40 times they talked, and everyone else was like 20. So I tell them that, I go, this is what we need to work on. So your goal is to get to 100. And so the next game, I had a kid get to 90.
Yeah.
And then another kid get to 60, 63. And I'm like, wow, that's a really big jump. That's really good. All right, now let's dial in those comps. We're used to talking to each other a lot. Okay, let's talk about what's important and what's not. Because as you probably know, like esports, things happen in split seconds.
Oh, yeah.
So you need to react really fast and you need to communicate really fast. It's not like football where the quarterback does an audible and it's like 10 seconds of an audible, right? You can't do that. So that's kind of like the basic beginning practice that we usually start with.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love to see like you have so many different focuses on the smaller mechanics, kind of the scrimming, the team play, and then also communications. Because like you said, I think especially the esports enthusiasts, the players, the students, they lack those communication skills because it's just that trope, and that kind of leads me to my next question. Obviously, it seems like in your experience, you've seeing the idea behind esports that these kids are reserved, somewhat quiet. And I think a lot of that's because they haven't found their place yet, right? They're not so
Yeah.
passionate about traditional sports. Maybe they don't play band. They don't do many other extracurriculars, which is nothing wrong because their passions are in esports. But a lot of high schools and middle schools and really any school don't have those opportunities or platforms to grow. Obviously yours does. So take me through kind of like the important parts of that of, you being able to provide the platform so they can continue to grow those skill sets that they may be lacking because they haven't quite found what that platform is for them, but obviously now they have with esports.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's awesome seeing these kids from like the first day till the last day.
Mhm.
At my old school, I mean, everyone was super reserved. Everyone was very, very quiet. And by the end of it, like we would have hour-long conversations after school about the practice, and kids just wanted to keep talking. They wanted to interact with each other. And I mean, inside jokes. I played football. I played basketball. Played every sport basically.
Hmm.
It looked just like the same, right? Like a football locker room looked
Hmm.
just like the hour after.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's very, very interesting to see that. And the other thing is that you talk about how kids don't have that platform yet. I tell my kids day one, I go, you are all better than me, right? Like you are better players than I am. I'm not going to be able to beat you.
Hmm.
But what I do know is I know life skills.
Hmm.
Those life skills in esports of talking, communicating, gelling, being a team, those those skills really, really help the team and it helps the environment. It makes it so that a kid that's never played before wants to come out and play.
Yep.
Um, and it's so inviting. Like I've even had at my last school, I had a student of autism come
Hmm.
out for the team, and he wanted to join because he saw that environment. And he saw something that he was interested in, and he wanted to be a part of it. And our team welcomed it with open arms. It was like nothing weird, nothing about it. He played with regular student with other students, so it's a really, really cool environment. It's really cool to really make it your own.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you hit on a number of important parts, and it's kind of the idea that I always look at it as esports has all of those opportunities built into it. And I think no one has really even seen the uncapped potential of esports, so to say. I think there's so much you can have, the playing specifically, the coaching, the analyzing, the casters, the commentators, the producers, the people that stream, content creators, and then also the creative skills, right? Photoshop, video editing, I think the games themselves, especially the open world one, kind of encourage that creativity aside. And a lot of people love those open world games for that reason. And I think though that's just like the tip of the iceberg, so to say.
Well,
So
so something that's really, really cool about my last program was, and that no one really thinks about, is English language learners.
Mhm.
I've had on my starting team of League of Legends, I think there was like two students that were really new to America and really new to English in general. They didn't have a lot of friends because of it, but I talked to them. I found out that they did play, and I had them join, and they found friends. They found a platform to be a part of, and their English got so good is
Mhm.
actually insane because we worked on those skills.
Mhm.
And something that like they went up in the ELL levels because of esports. I'm 99% sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think once any student or any, younger person finds that place of belonging or finds that platform that it just clicks and they're surrounded by those like-minded individuals, then all of a sudden like they're not shy anymore, right? Obviously, I think the biggest thing with the English speaking kind of idea, the language barriers is that so many students are like, wow, I can't really speak this. So like I'm gonna hesitate. But all of a sudden, like, hey, you play League of Legends, I play League of Legends. We can kind of communicate via that, and then all of a sudden they just like mesh together and like, yeah, I want to learn English a little bit better. And then like their teammates are like, yeah, absolutely, let's basically communicate in English as much as we can, and when you have a question, I'll answer it. And once you have that kind of connection and relationship, it's just the sky's the limit, right? They just hit it off,
Exactly.
like you said. So absolutely. um, so many great things with that platform. But I did have a particular question that I saw in the little bio you gave us before we started. Was that you touched on a little bit too? Is you actually helped develop the Colorado, the CHSAA, kind of making esport that sanctioned sport. So take me through that process and kind of how you inspired, a lot of board members, administrators, like, hey, this is the importance of esports. Like we've already been talking on and touching on of what the potential is to help the students in so many different life skills. How did you convey that to the administrators or the people involved in that, so they made it a sanctioned esport and they, you know, gave that support to really build these programs across the state?
Yeah, so I actually got a call from CHASA that was saying, hey, we're really interested in this. We heard you've done a tournament about this during the summer with local schools. I think it was like 3 or 4 schools. And I was like, yeah, I heard that you guys were interested in doing this. I'd love to join your board or join your group to help push this. And so basically what it went down is actually very, very simple. We hire a outside company called PlayVS, and PlayVS puts on all the tournaments for us. So they put on the tournaments, they put on the season, the state championship, everything. Excuse me. And they schedule it all. So we got in contact with them. We wanted to understand what this looks like. PlayVS has a track record of doing this in, I believe, now 12 different states.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going to be number 13.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked to them. We talked about the logistics of it. What is this going to look like? How much is this going to cost for the kids? Because obviously they want to make money. And so we talked it out with them. We understood what was going to be. We wanted some things on our side. They wanted some things on their side. We eventually came to an agreement that said, okay, we're going to do this. And we're going to do it for, I believe it was 2 years before it is a fully sanctioned sport where you get like a letter like you would for playing football.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if anything's changed with that because of COVID-19, because this would be our second year. And so after this, every single school would have to get coaches for it. They would get coaches pay, all of that stuff. So that's how we kind of developed it. And then when it was all said and done, I went to my athletic director at the time and I said, like, this is what I want to do. This is how much it's going to cost. What do you think of this? And it was a lot of money because you have a lot of upfront money to get computers. And well, fortunately for me, I was able to go to the district, get the money via that, which was like unheard of at the time. But the superintendent was all about it and really wanted to do it. So eventually got the money, got the computers, but after that, it doesn't cost the school anything. So if I were to be back at my old school again, it would cost nothing. So it's really, really, what's it called? Where you can do it over and over again, not renewable, I guess.
Kind of repeatable. I don't know.
Repeatable. So that's kind of basically how it started and how we got involved in it. And obviously me and another coach helped push it and give a coach's point of view or a student's point of view, because we were both players and coaches at the time.
Yeah, that's absolutely phenomenal here. And, you know, I love, you know, seeing the processes as these, you know, the official programs kind of start to pop up. Because you said, you know, I always say that they're like in little micro clusters, right? Where you see like these great programs kind of sprinkled all over the country, and some states have picked up on it, some haven't, and it's just kind of spread up. I love to see those success stories where people like you are successful in making it an official program and getting it. And I think you touched on a really good point there of comparing the upfront costs of what the computers cost, because obviously a gaming computer can be $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, depending on, do you have the newest and the greatest? Do you have what works? Do you have somewhere in between? It's a very large range, but typically probably around $1,500 after you get the monitors and the, you know, the peripherals, the mouse and the keyboard and whatnot. But it is expensive. But like, to me, when you were saying that, like it popped in my mind, like schools don't really think about like building a football field, right? And then getting all the pads and the helmets and the locker room and building a stadium. Like, I think that cost is probably a little bit less, but like once it's built, like you said, you use it for literally the rest of the school life, right? You use it for 10 years, 50 years, 100 years, however long it's around. And I think many schools are starting to catch on to that, I feel like. So that's a very interesting point there. Kind of moving to my next question is looking at, you know, getting the students to the next level. So I think we talked about it a little bit before. You can touch on a little bit. It's like, what's that next step look like, right? How do we help the students, you know, kind of perfect their skills and apply them to, you know, the next level? Really, the obvious answer is college, right? Taking them to college and, you know, apply it constructively, get a good degree and get a job, or if you're good enough, go pro, right? But you know, the reality is going pro is very difficult, especially in esports, because there's even less roster spots than in traditional sports. So take me through kind of like what your process and vision is, that where it is now and kind of where you hope the future kind of grows into, to really help these students, you know, grow within their own and also be able to apply to college, even be recruited to college to get scholarship dollars.
Yeah, 1 second. So a couple things, like I actually have a student that I'm interested in. They're very interested in going in amateur, right? So they're wanting to go amateur and then eventually collegiate. So when it comes to students, how do I identify that? First off, there's got to be a certain skill, right? And if there is a certain, if the skill actually matches, great, then we can move on from there. If it's not, I got to tell the student, hey, I understand you really want to do this, but this is where you're at. This is where you need to go. This is how you get from there. And I made it like a little plan for them that way. Um, so yeah, so that's the first thing. The second thing is that they have to be motivated to do it. Okay, it's not like going collegiate or going amateur is not just like I woke up one day I want to do it.
Yeah.
No, it's work. Like as funny it is because it's video games, it's work.
Yep.
So that's why I first make sure. After that, I want to see is like what skills do this student really need. And as I told you before, most of these students are better than me, right? But what I can bring is social, life skills. Well, that doesn't really help when you're going from middle ladder to amateur level. So a lot of what I do is I go and reach out and find other people that are better than me. So, for example, for League of Legends, when I did that, I went out and I went to Facebook, and there's a Facebook League of Legends page for Colorado. And I say, hey, is anyone interested in doing like a little bit of coaching for a high school team? These are their ranks. Can you help them? And some people are saying yes, and that's awesome. And like, obviously I'm there during every single meeting to make sure because, well, these are high school kids. So like safety is 100% the first thing. But I'm talking to them about this, and we're talking about this in Discord to where, hey, how can I help out this kid? And a lot of people are really, really good about that, which is awesome. And it really shows about the community, right? After that, like another option is just going to YouTube videos and practicing that. As you see there's a lot of like really good free content that I use in my drills all the time. And I'll show them to my best players and say like, hey, I want your opinion on this. Is this drill actually good or not? And if they tell me no, I'm not going to use it, right? They know better. So that's another option. Third option, there are paid coaches that you can go to and find on the website. I try not to do that because these are high school kids, right? How much money do they really have? And like, some of it's ridiculous. Some of it's like 20, 40, 60 bucks an hour. And I'm like, you're making more money an hour than I am. Right. So I know that like, it's not like students can't do that. The fourth option though, is like, for example, my Rocket League team, I'll go back to my old students who are, one of them is better, who's grand champ, who's the top rank in the game. And I'll go to him and say, hey, I need your help on how to help these kids. And he'll come in for a practice and he'll watch, okay, this is what I'm seeing and this is what I would do differently, and help him that way. The good thing is that as I'm going through this process, I'm learning more and more about the collegiate scene and the amateur scene. And I'm learning that like, hey, if you need help from someone, there's going to be someone that will eventually help that's better than you, that'll help you. So for example, one of my old students who's a senior this year, he went on an amateur team. And in there, they have their own coach. They pay the fees. They do everything for him, but he doesn't get paid yet. But it's a way for him to get better so that when he goes to college, he can go for scholarships. He can get that money.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you brought up a lot of good points there. There's so many different avenues to get better, right? Whether it's inside help, outside help, or drills, there's always a resource out there that I think is free most of the time that people can kind of tap into and be like, hey, I can use this constructively. So absolutely agree there. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. Had a fantastic discussion on a number of different fronts. And I will leave everybody with one last question, which is looking at esports as a global industry, right? At all levels across the entire world. Obviously, it's growing incredibly quickly. It's, generating a ton of money. I think this year is the first year is projected to hit $1 billion or slightly over in revenue. So obviously, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. But it's not quite mainstream yet, right? There's still a lot of people out there that don't really, they've heard of esports. They've seen Call of Duty or Rocket League or League of Legends on TV, but they're like, I'm really not sure what that is. So what do you think is that one thing that could really help kind of bolster that mainstream view of like, hey, I've heard of esports, I'm not sure what it is. How does the industry kind of go from where it is now to where like football and soccer is, where everyone's seen it, they recognize it, they can follow it, they'll watch it with their friends?
Well, every single sport goes through this phase, right? And I think the biggest thing, the sports that really rise and gain in popularity, the reason why is because they take themselves seriously. Esports right now is not taken seriously in the public view, and even some like colleges and things like that, when college teams are coming out and saying we want to run an esports program, this program's made this much money, they don't take it seriously, right? Even still, high school coaches are considered clubs, not sports. A lot of colleges are considered clubs, not sports. ESPN, for example, ESPN during whole COVID-19, it took them the longest time to eventually take the esports and put it on the channel instead of showing like the 2005 Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's organizations and companies need to start taking it seriously, because there's money there for companies, and it looks really good for different programs. And I think that's the number one thing. Once people take it seriously, it's going to skyrocket.
Yep, I think that's a great point there, and I think there's a lot to unpack there as well. Just surrounding all of those ideas, I really hope it does be taken more serious than it is now, because I think from that societal standpoint, that's what it needs, right? Because every time you go on to like a sports bar or a tavern, or you go to the local restaurant and you see the football game on, no one blinks an eye, but all of a sudden they throw a Rocket League game up there or a Twitch stream, you're like it's like an uproar. It's like, whoa, like,
yeah.
Like you said, like COVID-19, like there's literally nothing else on.
Yeah.
Live. This is a game you watched 10 years ago and you've probably already seen a couple of times over anyways. So I think once that kind of sentiment starts to change, like you said, we'll see a big improvement as well from that mainstream average perspective, so to say. But unfortunately, we have run out of time. Thanks again for joining me, Matt. Fantastic discussions about high school, especially at the high school level. Real quick, if you will, plug yourself, plug your program. Tell us where we can find y'all on any social media or website, etc.
Still in the process of making social media, but Castle View High School, Colorado. Shout out to all the SaberCats out there.
Awesome. Everyone, keep a close eye on them. I think y'all will be really successful in your new program. I can't wait to see that success come to fruition, especially for those students and players part of your program. To all our viewers and listeners, thanks for staying the entire time. Stay healthy and stay happy, especially during the current, talking over myself now, especially during the current pandemic. Obviously, COVID, don't take it lightly. Take care of yourself. And ultimately, stay plugged in.